Hey, beautiful people, welcome or welcome back to Well with Mika, where we talk real wellness for your real life. I'm Mika, your cultural wellness ally, and today we're going to bring your gut front and center, specifically your gut microbiome. Let me ask you this question. Have you ever eaten a meal and then that itis hit you real hard right after? Sorry, for those unfamiliar, you get really tired after you eat, or suddenly you feel bloated or irritable or anxious, and you can't even figure it out. It's just like why? This just don't seem like that there's any reason. Or maybe it's the opposite. You ate, then you felt good, you felt satisfied, you felt calm, like your body was just like, thank you, sis, love you. For years, I didn't even connect those feelings to what I was eating, right? I thought feeling good or bad after meals was just something random. Part of getting older, part of life, whatever it was, right? But then I realized something that changed how I think about food, mood, and energy. I learned about the gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria living in your digestive system, and they're literally sending signals to your brain, your immune system, your entire body. And most of us have never been taught to listen. And that's not random, it's not age, it's not discipline, it's your gut microbiome responding to how it's being treated. So today, I don't want to drop a bunch of science terms and then say eat this and then send you on your way. I want to really talk about gut health in a real life, living, practical way. Because your gut isn't just about the digestion, it shows up in your energy, in your mood, your cravings, your stress, your social life, and even how connected you feel to food and culture. And I don't think we should ignore that. So let's talk about it. We tend to think gut health only matters if something feels wrong, right? But the truth is, your gut be talking. Your gut is talking to you and it's speaking through. If you feel bloated or if you feel comfortable, you have steady energy or you feel like you're crashing, you're calm or you're anxious, cravings or satisfaction, regular digestion or chaos, okay? Let me give you an example. Maybe you notice that when you eat that big pasta dinner, you feel sluggish and anxious an hour later. But then you have rice and beans with some veggies, then all of a sudden, you feeling good. You feel steady all evening. I guess it's not all of a sudden, but you know what I'm saying. You don't have that same, oh my gosh, I just want to lay out and go to sleep, itis feeling. And it's not random. That's your gut microbiome getting the fiber and the diversity that it needs to produce the neurotransmitters that keep you calm and focused. And here's the important part: you don't need to understand every bacteria to respond to the message. You just need to pay attention and notice the patterns. And that's not nutrition trivia, okay? That's just body literacy. It's you listening to your body. Get to know yourself, get to know your body, pay attention, all right? Let's start with the obvious one. If you're eating good food, right? But you feel heavy after, you feel tired, you feel uncomfortable, that's often, it's not just the calories, it's about the microbial support. Your gut bacteria help break down the food, it helps pull the nutrients out that your body needs and keep inflammation in check, right? When they're underfed, usually from low fiber and low diversity, digestion feels like work instead of flow. So that's the feedback that you want to listen to. And this one matters deeply because that was just the physical realm, right? Now we're going to go into the psychological fitness. Something wild is that 90% of your body's serotonin is produced in the gut. Now, that gut serotonin doesn't go directly to your brain, but your gut bacteria send signals through what's called the gut brain axis that influence how your brain produces its own serotonin and other mood chemicals. So, if you notice anxiety spikes after eating, mood dips when digestion is off, your brain fog, your stress feels harder to manage, that's what scientists call the gut brain axis. That's the direct communication line between your digestive system and your brain. So when we talk about fermented foods and fiber, we're not just talking about digestion, we're talking about emotional resilience. And that's that psychological piece of it. Then we got to hit the social piece because this one it gets ignored a lot, but it's a big portion because if your gut feels unpredictable, guess who's not going out for social meals, right? Guess who's not being social? you. You avoid social meals, you eat differently than everyone else. You worry about how you'll feel later. You worry about, what you look like to the people around you. You have to be the eyeball out, and that impacts connection. Comfort in your body creates freedom to eat with others, enjoy your gatherings, and not center every outing around managing your symptoms. And here's the thing, that goes both ways. When you're stressed at a social gathering, if you're worried about judgment, navigating your family dynamics, that stress directly impacts your gut. Your nervous system and your gut, they talk a lot, okay? They are in constant conversation. So healing your gut is not just about what you eat, it's also about feeling safe and comfortable in your life. Gut health supports social ease, not just your physical comfort. And now let's really get into this cultural and family wellness part, okay? Cuz when we talk about fermented foods, we usually think kimchi, we think yogurt, we think sauerkraut, right? Right? Sauerkraut, right? You know what I'm saying. Fermented foods didn't start with wellness trends. They really started with culture, survival, and tradition. Not every culture has them. In the Caribbean, you want to think homemade ginger beer, fermented cassava, fermented pepper sauces, and yes, bami, while it's cooked after the fermenting, that fermenting process makes it easier to digest. So yes, you're not getting the live bacteria from the bami, but you do get better digestion because of the fermenting that happened previously. Then we travel over to West Africa, and they have fermented millet and sorghum. They have dawa dawa. I never had it, but it's fermented locust beans, from what I understand, and then fermented tofu. Then in East Africa, you have your injera and something called tagwa. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's a fermented millet drink. Then, I talked about the yogurt in South Asia. You have something called dahi, I believe, and pickled veggies and fermented rice. Then you go over to East Asia, and that's where you get your miso and your kimchi and your natto. And then in Europe, you have sauerkraut, kefir, sourdough, and the yogurt again. So the important note is that not all fermented foods have live cultures by the time you eat them. So, like I said, some like the bami, that it's fermented, but by the time you cook it, fried, whatever you do to it, the live bacteria gets killed off and you get easier digestion without the live bacteria. But then you have others like the traditional homemade ginger beer, not the ginger beer you're buying in the store, the homemade ginger beer. Those do have live cultures. The point isn't, you have to have this perfect fermented diet. It's really about honoring the food traditions that supported gut health long before anyone called it that, right? Because it existed. And I just want you to really expand your idea of what fermented foods look like, and staying true to whatever culture you claim, whatever cultures you even want to explore, and just knowing that there are different fermented foods all across the world. So I don't want you to ever abandon your cultural identity. That's why I'm here to be your cultural wellness ally. Hello. It's really about reconnecting to the wisdom that already existed, and revisiting maybe some of the traditions that got lost, or even figuring out ways to either continue the health in those traditions, or maybe do a little remix and make them healthier. And we can simplify this, all right? Because I also want you to consider the presence of prebiotics as well as the probiotics, right? The probiotics, those are the ones that get a lot of the attention because those are the ones that we just mentioned, right? With the fermented foods. And just to be clear, probiotics are live beneficial bacteria, the good guys, right? Then prebiotics, that's the fiber that feeds them. So you could think of it this way. Probiotics, those are the guests, those are the house guests, right? But the prebiotics, those are the groceries. And your gut, that's the house. So you can invite the guests over, the yogurt, the kefir, the fermented foods, the ginger beer. But if there's no food in the fridge, they ain't gonna stay. They're gonna leave. They say you ain't had nothing here for me. I'm gone. So prebiotics, the fiber rich foods, we want to introduce those. You want to have your beans and your lentils, your veggies, your fruits, your whole grains. And the beautiful thing is that if you grew up eating plantain, yam, cassava, green banana, okra, pigeon peas, callaloo, breadfruit, my favorite, you are already eating prebiotic rich food. So you don't have to really overthink it because these traditional staples, they already feed in your gut microbiome perfectly, okay? You don't need to adopt a whole new diet. You might just need to return to the foods your grandmother always knew were good for you. You just need to listen. Listen. Now, here's the key. It's not perfection, and you don't have to be afraid of trying new things also. Dip into other cultures. Just don't abandon your own. You need the consistency, and you can add some variety. Now you might be wondering about probiotic supplements. And now what my take is look, try the food first, all right? The research is much stronger for fermented foods and fiber-rich meals than it is for the pills, like most things, right? So if you want to try a supplement, fine, but don't let it replace the real thing. Your gut evolved to get its support from the food, not the capsules. So if you're really supporting yourself with good food and, getting those good prebiotics and probiotics, you should be fine without the supplement unless you have certain specific conditions. You've spoken to your doctor, they recommended it, then by all means go ahead. And it's very hard and expensive to find good probiotic supplements anyway, but feel free to. But I would say try the foods first. Now, we want to keep it achievable, right? Because we do real wellness over here. So instead of changing everything, I want you to try this. Add one thing. We ain't gonna overhaul. We're not gonna restrict. We're gonna add. So, for example, let's have some yogurt with some berries instead of just plain. You most of y'all doing this anyway because I don't know many people that eat yogurt, much less eat the yogurt plain. Maybe it's my circle, but I'm just saying. Beans, you want to add some beans to your soup, your rice, or your salad. If you have pepper sauce, eat that regularly with your meals, all right? Unless you have a condition that requires you to stay away from that much spice, but get some fermented pepper sauce on your plate. Kefir blended into a smoothie, that's a good way to mask some of the tartness of that kefir because it could, okay. Then you could do leftover rice with veggies and protein, which is, great microbial food. When the rice cools, it forms resistant starch, which your gut loves. So don't eat the, warm rice. I know, great, cooked fresh, everything is nice, but let that rice cool all the way down and then eat it. You could warm it back up after it cools down, but just let it get all the way cool so it could form that resistant starch and feed the gut nice. And if you're eating foods that were fermented but then cooked, like the bami, pair them with something that has the live cultures, like the pepper sauce or the yogurt, because you'll still be supporting your gut. You get the good digestion with the probiotics. That is a win-win. So one addition per day feeds your gut without overwhelming your life. These are just examples. Choose one that you like, choose one that you'll stick with, and then you could keep adding from there. So now if you're thinking, oh gosh, Mika, I don't like yogurt or I don't do beans, that's fine because it's not about forcing yourself really to eat the foods you hate. Find something that you do like. I'm sure that you can get something that you like. And the thing is also, which I've mentioned previously, it's okay to keep trying a thing until you like it or until you decide I really can't take it. It's okay. Give yourself that permission to say, you know what, I'm going to give this a trial period. We're going to experiment for a few days. We're going to experiment for a month and see if I could really stomach this. And then if you really can't, then you move on to the next. So start with what you do like. Like you love fruits, add variety, your apples, your berries, bananas. They all feed the different bacteria. You prefer rice? Just try adding veggies and use leftover rice. The key is variety and consistency. So remember, the real wellness is right for you, energizing, achievable, and lasting. Okay, choose what works for you. It's not about chasing the perfect gut, buying every supplement, moralizing the food. It's really about learning to notice how the food makes you feel, how digestion affects your mood, how comfort in your body affects your life. Your gut doesn't need control, it just really needs your support. You need to listen to it and work with it. So if there's one thing I want you to take away from this, is that your gut is already talking to you. Your gut, just listen. You don't really need more rules. You just really need to listen, all right? Try the one thing. Try any one of the examples I mentioned, whether it's the beans, the yogurt, pepper sauce, whatever it is, try it. Then notice how you feel an hour later, 3 hours later, the next morning. That's how the real change happens. Not through the pressure of perfection, but really through the partnership with your body. Your gut, it ain't really broken. It's just looking for you. Look, it might be broken. I ain't gonna lie, it might be broken, but you're there to support it, to help it, to fix it, okay? And now you know how to give it what it needs, all right? So thank you so much for being here. I hope and pray that this helped you and helps you to think about how you're going to approach pre and probiotics and keeping that gut microbiome nice and healthy and happy. And of course, keeping your wellness real, all right? Please feel free to leave a comment. Let me know what you're going to try. Let me know what you're going to add this week or next week or tomorrow, tonight, whatever. I'm willing to listen, and we could chat about it in the comment section, all right? Share it, like it, subscribe, okay? And until next time, as always, happy healthing. Peace.